Thank you all for joining. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Once again, thank you all so much. We are going to continue with Bhagavad Gita as it is. We have been studying chapter 5, which is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And we are going to continue with verse number 24. Yoantaha sukho antar aramas tathantar jyotir eva yaha sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuta digacchati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. There's a very nice purport by Srila Prabhupada. Unless one is able to relish happiness from within, how can one retire from the external engagements meant for deriving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is called Brahmabhuta, attaining which one is assured of going back to Godhead, back to home. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So once again, thank you all so much for joining to hear the last part of this chapter number 5 of Bhagavad Gita, which is Karma Yoga, wherein Krishna is explaining to Arjuna how we should perform our activities in such a way that we do not collect any reactions, neither good nor bad. In other words, how to lead a karma-free life. And this process mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita gradually brings us to you can see the secret formula for happiness and peace. Everyone is looking for happiness. Everyone wants to be peaceful. No one likes to be in anxiety. No one likes to be sad or morose or lamenting. So here, towards the end of this chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving that secret formula. And we can get a hint from about that formula from this verse that we read today. He says, one whose happiness is within. You see, is the happiness from within. It's not something that comes from external sources. And a person is active, is rejoicing within. And Krishna calls him a perfect mystic, which means he's on a liberated state platform, and he's already attained the supreme. In other words, he is reached that Brahma Bhuta stage. There's a very nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita which says Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. That when one becomes liberated and reaches that Brahma Bhuta platform of self-realization, that person has no hankerings. That person has no lamentations at all. Why? Because that person is enjoying the happiness from within. Now one may question, what does it mean to be happy within? Which means that person is completely satisfied, has no expectations, is not running after anything, is completely satisfied, has no attachments, is not entangled anywhere. You know, as the Brahmabhuta person is, he has no hankerings. I want this and I want that. And then also, because there is happiness within, there is no lamentation. Is not lamenting, oh, I don't have this, I have this problem and that. No. So how does one reach that Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma stage, that liberated stage, or a stage of self-realization? Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, it's possible only through Bhakti Yoga. Now, there are different rungs on the yoga ladder. There is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the topmost rung of this yoga ladder. Once a person starts practicing Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti means devotion, connecting, yoga means connecting. So connecting with the Supreme with devotion, then that person, that Bhakti Yogi, is automatically following all the other rungs on the ladder, which means is already a Karma Yogi, a Jnana Yogi, a Dhyana Yogi, and an Ashtanga Yogi. And the most important point, such a person who is enjoying happiness from within has realized what is the purpose of human form of life. Human form of life is not for eating, sleeping, and, eat, sleep, and be merry. No, it's way beyond. It's not just, four activities, which even the animals do. What are those activities? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Animals also do. But we human beings, we have philosophical intelligence by which we can inquire, how can I come out of this cycle of birth and death? How can I stop this cycle of misery? How can I stop running after enjoying my senses? Only way is, if we get a higher taste, then automatically we will reject the lower taste. Many times I give this example where if supposing my child is eating mud, in the backyard, and I want that child to stop eating mud, if I just keep saying stop, 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 he is not going to listen. I need to give him a higher taste. So if I give him a candy, he's immediately going to reject that lower taste, because now he has got a higher taste. So Bhagavad Gita gives us knowledge on how we can experience that higher taste. And that is possible when we come to that Brahma Bhuta stage of self-realization. And this takes constant practice. Anything that we want to succeed in life, we need to practice. We need to constantly practice, practice, practice. As it is said, practice makes one perfect. So the Bhakti Yogi, the one who is trying to realize oneself, to come to that stage where one is not disturbed at all, is always happy and peaceful within, that requires to, step by step, gradual progression. And the very first level of starting this process is mantra meditation. When we chant the holy names of the Lord, which actually are very powerful sound vibrations that cleanse our heart. And so this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita plus mantra meditation will take us to that stage of self-realization, which we most of us are wanting. Why? Because that is the only stage where one can be peaceful and happy, and be happy within. So knowledge, when put into practice, equals to self-realization. Now, we read today in the purport of Srila Prabhupada, he says that such a person, someone who is a liberated person, can be sitting in a very quiet place, not doing anything at all, and still enjoying within, is not disturbed by what is going on around. Why? Because has reached that stage of spiritual realization. So when a person is happy within, then automatically that person is peaceful. Now, today's topic is, what is the secret formula for peace? That will be answered by Krishna towards the end of the chapter, verse number 29, which gives that formula that can make us happy within and peaceful. So the bhakti yoga, it actually helps one to purify not only the senses, but the mind and intelligence also. It also helps in regulating the senses. Just like there is a necessity of discipline in our lives. Even the children, when they go to school, they have to follow certain discipline. They need to reach school at particular time. The school ends at a particular time. There is a particular time for a break or a lunch break or whatever it is. So there is a discipline required. Similarly, even in spirituality, it's important to be disciplined, which means one has to understand how to control the senses, because senses, they are like wild horses. Imagine if we are driving a chariot with 5 horses, the 5 senses. So if each horse is trying to go in different direction, then there's going to be chaos. So it's important that these senses, which are like wild horses, they need to come under control. In other words, we need to control what we eat, control what we hear, what we see. So this is called regulation of senses. And then once we start learning how to control the senses, then gradually we'll start getting that higher taste. And actually, there is an urgent need for controlling the senses. When we hear this Bhagavad Gita, knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, which is actually a spiritual science, when we hear it in a systematic way, right, verse after verse, chapter after chapter, then gradually everything will be very clear. There'll be a clear understanding as to what is the purpose of human form of life, who we really are, what is our real identity, what is our relationship with the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So this all will be, you can say it, the realization will come when we, along with the knowledge, we add on mantra meditation on a daily basis. That will help us also to control the urges of the senses. There's a very beautiful Sanskrit verse which says, Vacha Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam Jivha Vegam Udarupasta Vegam. That one who is able to control the urges of speaking, Vacha means words of speaking, Manasa means the mind, Krodha, anger, Jivha, the tongue. What is the purpose of the tongue? To eat and to vibrate, to speak. So if one is able to control all these senses, in other words, regulate them, then a person will gradually start feeling happiness within. And that realization will come with the process of taking on the knowledge and also performing some mantra meditation. In verse number 25, Krishna tells Arjuna that those who are beyond the dualities, what are the dualities? Happiness, distress, success, failure, heat, cold, all these are dualities. So those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, such person achieves liberation in the Supreme. So here, Krishna is giving us the qualities of someone who is liberated. And what is that? That person goes beyond dualities. Now, it's not that easy. Say if something nice happens, is it possible to control rejoicing? Or something bad happens, is it possible to control lamentation? That requires practice. In last Tuesday's verse, we picked up this very beautiful verse where Krishna tells Arjuna, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakicha Panditaha Samadarshina. Panditaha, that a person who sees every living entity with equal vision, It doesn't matter whether human, animals, aquatics, trees, it doesn't matter. All living entities, when that Pandita, that learned person, sees everyone with equal vision, then he says that person is Sama Darshana. He is on the level of, you can say equanimity. He is completely undisturbed by the bodily designations. Oh, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a man, this is a woman. That person is beyond these designations. Why? Because that person has understood from the Bhagavad Gita that to be happy and peaceful, one has to come to that level of Sama Darshina, to see everyone with equal vision. So that requires practice. It is not something that happens overnight. No, it requires practice. So here, this verse number 25, Krishna is talking about going beyond dualities, which means engaging the mind properly, because everything happens in the mind. Thinking, feeling, willing, all this takes place in the mind. So engaging the mind properly and remain busy working for the welfare of other living entities. Now, one may say, what kind of welfare work? Someone may say, giving food to the hungry, giving clothing to those who don't have clothes, or, things like that. That is good, but it's not good enough. The best welfare work would be to give knowledge. To give knowledge to other living entities, especially the human beings, who can understand why are they suffering and how they can break this cycle of birth and death, and how they can remain happy within. How can they, remain peaceful in all situations? So just like there is a very nice saying, service to God is service to mankind. This is how we can do service. Service to God would be, we help the mankind, we work for the welfare of others, teach them how to love the Supreme Lord, teach them how to perform our activities for the Supreme Lord Krishna. Because if we get entangled in actions for our personal enjoyment, personal sense gratification, then we get entangled. And there is bondage. We've learned this in chapter 3, where Krishna says, Yagnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. That if work is not performed as a sacrifice for Krishna, then that work causes bondage. So we need to decide, what is it that we want? Do we want to be free and liberated, or do we want to be in bondage? So teaching others, learning ourselves, giving this knowledge to others, working for Krishna, connecting with him through mantra meditation, because the holy names of the Lord, they are like our telephone number to get in touch. So if I want to talk to any one of you, then I would need your phone number, to dial that number and talk to you, to connect with you. Similarly, this mantra, the Maha Mantra, which we meditate on every day, is the telephone number to connect to the Supreme Lord Krishna. And it is very simple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the best welfare activity would be to give this knowledge to whomsoever we know, friends, neighbors, relatives, whoever it may be, or colleagues. Let them understand the real identity, who we really are, and help them to understand, so that they can also free themselves from the sins that, see, we all living entities have somehow or the other, at some point of time, have committed some sinful activities. For instance, even right now, all of us are committing sins. How? By breathing. When we breathe in, we are taking the lives of so many organisms that we are breathing in. But we need to breathe, otherwise we will die. We will have to, leave this body. But so all these sins that have been accumulated, there's a very simple process to get rid of all these sinful reactions. In the 18th last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will give us a formula for that. He says, Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam braja. Aham tum sarva papebhyo. He says, I will remove all the sinful reactions that have accumulated so far. Only thing is that we take on this knowledge, the spiritual science of Bhagavad Gita, and follow it, put it into practice, and surrender unto the Supreme Lord Krishna. Then he says he will remove all the sinful reactions. So there's a process how to become even free from sins. Like this verse that we read, it tells us how to lead a karma-free and sin-free life. That means at that stage, a person is liberated, is self-realized. And only when we reach that stage of self-realization that we will experience happiness within. And when we do that, then we will always be peaceful. There will be no question of, lamentation at all. So now these two verses that we read just now, 24 and 25, one may think, well, liberation seems to be too difficult to achieve. We might get a little discouraged. But no, but if Krishna says, if one sincerely endeavors, then the results will be there. Let's see what is there in verse number 26. Excuse me. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. So you see here, very, very nicely, it is being described by Krishna himself that how, in fact, he is giving us the symptoms of someone who is self-realized. The very first point is that such a person is free from anger. Are we free from anger? Well, let us first see what does Krishna say about anger. How does anger arise? In chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is contents of the Gita summarized, Krishna says that when the senses come in contact with sense objects, like for instance, my eyes see something, so immediately there is attachment. The senses come in contact with sense objects, there is attachment. I want it, I need it, I got to have it. Now, when that attachment or that sincere desire to get what we have just seen does not come true, we are unable to, fulfill our desire, then Krishna says anger arises. And what is the result of anger? There is bewilderment of memory, intelligence is lost, and the person falls down. Consciousness drops. Why? This all happened because of anger. And how did it start? Senses coming in contact with sense objects. So there is a need for self-discipline. There is a need to regulate our senses on a daily basis, constantly endeavoring for perfection. Have you noticed that even though the product called Coca-Cola is very famous, but still we see that the company is making all efforts to advertise it on a daily basis. Why? Because they don't want the consumers to forget, to remind them again and again and again. So we see so many advertisements about Coca-Cola, constant reminders. Then only it registers. So constant endeavoring for perfection also is necessary. Then a person will reach to that stage of liberation. And in this verse, Krishna says, will then ultimately reach the Supreme Lord. Now, most people, they are, you can say they are accustomed to enjoying the senses. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it needs to be regulated. Most people are only interested in satisfying the bodily needs. Very few will think about the soul, which is within the body, the real us, our real identity. We are spirit souls that are, inside this body. So we feed the body, but we forget to feed the soul. So one may say, then what is the food for the soul? The food for the soul is mantra meditation, chanting the holy names of the Lord. That is what gives nourishment to the soul, and that is what makes one spiritually stronger. It gives a lot of nourishment. So when one engages the senses, excuse me, in service of the Supreme Lord, then automatically the senses, they start getting purified. And then what is the result? There is enlightenment, there is realization, there is satisfaction, there is happiness within, and then there is peace also. That's automatic. So it's only those who endeavor seriously for perfection, then that perfection is easily available. Why? Because the Lord is within the heart of all living entities as the super soul, and he sees our desires, he sees, our efforts, he can see our sincere endeavors, and then he bestows his mercy accordingly. So in the Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says, ye yatha ma prapadyante tam statheva bhajamiham, that as one surrenders unto the Lord Krishna, he rewards them accordingly. And that's very fair. Is as much as effort we put in, that is how much the reward we can get. So we see that up till these verses, Krishna is giving us knowledge on the process of liberation, how by working in complete knowledge of the super soul, to be aware that yes, the Lord is within my heart. That is why, especially in India, the body is considered like a temple because the Lord is inside the body. The super soul is called super soul, or in Sanskrit is called Paramatma. So let's see what does he say in the next two verses, 27 and 28. Excuse me. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who's always in this state is certainly liberated. Now, this sounds very complicated. How? Because here Krishna is giving the knowledge of Ashtanga Yoga, which is one of the rungs of the yoga ladder. And as I explained earlier, if we follow Bhakti Yoga, then Ashtanga Yoga is already included in that. So then we don't need to, in the very next chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga, Krishna will explain how one should perform Ashtanga Yoga. He'll give a lot of specifications, the whole process in detail. But here he's just giving a glimpse of Ashtanga Yoga for those who are interested in it. But at the end, the very next verse, he'll say the topmost is Bhakti Yoga. That is the topmost. So if one is engaged in devotional service to Krishna, then there is no need to perform Ashtanga Yoga because it's included in that. And then there is no risk of even the senses going haywire. The problem most people have is controlling the senses. But with Bhakti Yoga, it is very easy to do that. It's easy to control the senses with the help of devotional service. And the first step of devotional service is mantra meditation. Let's take the very last verse for today, which is actually the last verse of the chapter number 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And this verse gives the formula for peace. How can one be happy and peaceful? The verse says, Bhoktaram yagna tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwara, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, Gnatva Mam Shantim Richati. Shanti means peace. So Krishna says this is the formula. What is it? A person in full consciousness of me, that means full consciousness of Krishna, knowing him to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Such a person attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So, in other words, Krishna is saying that in this material world, there are miseries, there are pangs of material miseries. So if one wants to get relief from these miseries, if one wants to remain peaceful while living in this material world, then it is very, very important to understand that first of all, we need to become fully conscious of Krishna. How? By taking on the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, understanding who is he. We've got many references from the Vedic scriptures, from the Vedas. Who is the Supreme Lord? If we look up in the dictionary, the meaning of supreme being, God, if we look up God, it says he's the supreme being. It's singular. It doesn't say supreme beings. No, one person, someone who has no one who is equal to him or above him. That is the Supreme Lord. And in Bhagavad Gita also, here in this verse, Krishna is saying, I am Sarva Loka Maheshwara. Ishvara means God. Maha Ishvara means the Supreme Lord. So he says, I'm the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods. So if we can understand this knowledge and, contemplate on it and accept it and understand, how can we become fully conscious of Krishna? By following the process, and it starts with mantra meditation. He says, I am the Suhridam, I'm the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Now one may say, how is that? Well, he is situated in the heart and he's coming with us everywhere. He is with us, all of us. He is within us all the time. It doesn't matter which body, which species we go into. There are 8.4 million species of lives, so many different kinds of living entities. It doesn't matter whether we are in an animal body, bird body, fish body, human body, doesn't matter. He travels with us from one body to another. Why? Because he wants to guide us. He wants to help us to become liberated. How we can get rid of pangs of material misery. So this is a very simple process to attain permanent peace. As I was saying, there are many references. In fact, in Brahma Samhita, it says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The first created being, Lord Brahma, is explaining that Krishna is the Maha Ishvara. He is the supreme Lord of everyone. He is the cause of all causes. And here in Bhagavad Gita also we see, in fact, the summary of the Vedas is called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that it says, Ete Chamsa Kalapamsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna, you yourself are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we can somehow the other, with references from the scriptures, understand and accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he is within our hearts, he is guiding us, he is sanctioning our desires, he's the controller and the proprietor. Unfortunately, most people think, I am the controller. Are we the controllers? We cannot control our death. We cannot control aging. We cannot control disease. We cannot, control all the miseries that the mind and the body give. We are not able to control. We are not the controllers. We are just thinking that we are the controllers. But the moment we understand that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller and proprietor, and not be under illusion that I am the controller, then we will be able to accept the authority of the Supreme Lord. So this verse that I just recited, Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwara, the very last verse of this chapter, there are some very important words in there. It says, Bhoktaram Yagna. Yagna means sacrifice. He says Bhokta. Bhokta means enjoyer. Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of all the sacrifices and austerities. And Sarva Loka Maheshwara. He is the final enjoyer, and he is the goal of the beneficiary of all. And he is also the Maha Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. So all those who attempt at austerities, they need to understand that the result of those austerities is to be enjoyed by Krishna. Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. As I explained, Suhridam, he is our best friend. He is our well-wisher. He is the super soul within our heart, traveling with us in different bodies that we are taking. So once we understand this knowledge, we accept Krishna is the Supreme Lord, we start regulating our senses, we start going for the higher taste and start rejecting the lower taste. We start practicing bhakti yoga with the very first step of mantra meditation. Then when the Lord sees our sincere endeavors, then he will bestow his mercy upon us, where we will be able to realize this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. It is not that we can just open the Bhagavad Gita, read, and become self-realized. No, it doesn't work like that at all. We need the mercy of the Supreme Lord. He has given us this knowledge by which we can, in fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, he's showing us how to perform bhakti yoga. See, so just taking on knowledge or renunciation, that cannot help us in controlling our senses or give us liberation. No, we need to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, who is our dear most friend. So here in the very last verse, Krishna is giving us a guarantee that we will definitely attain peace, that we will be able to rejoice, happiness within. It is possible when we just follow the step-by-step instructions given to us by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Until and unless we understand the position of Supreme Lord Krishna, our relationship with him, and our real identity, that we are the spirit soul and not the body, then only we will be able to experience happiness and peace within. So just, on a daily basis, just start practicing bhakti yoga. Yoga means connecting, bhakti means devotion, to connect with the Supreme Lord with the help of devotion, with the help of bhakti. So this is how Krishna says, this is the secret formula to attain peace permanently. It's not, the happiness that we experience in the material world. It has a beginning, and it has an end. We are happy, and then that happiness is now gone because it's material. But when we aim for spiritual happiness, then that is going to be permanent. Then no matter in what situation we are, we go beyond dualities. So this is what this chapter of Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 5, is giving us knowledge about actions, how we should perform our actions, in what consciousness we should perform our actions, so that there are no reactions. That is called leading a karma-free and sin-free life. When we lead a karma-free life, which is like, the senses are regulated, the mind and intelligence are sharpened with this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, by practicing the mantra meditation, then the realization will bring us to that stage of Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma, where that person is liberated, is self-realized. And let me tell you, it is not very easy, but it is not impossible. It is possible to reach that stage. Only thing that is required is sincerity and seriousness. These are the two things that are required in practicing bhakti yoga. So I will end now. The chapter is concluded.